Here we are. We're live, and
Now, Bobby, are you sure we're live?
yes, this time I
Okay.
am sure.
I'm just gonna double check. Can you hear us
Yeah, well, yeah.
and see us? I guess there's a bit of a delay, so it
If
will.
I won't pretend to be offended because
Oh,
it's happened too many times. Yay!
hello. How are you doing?
Uh, what are you talking to?
I'm talking to Bobby.
What are you
Is
talking?
Bobby your friend?
Bobby's my friend. Yeah,
He's a boy.
he's a boy.
I don't want to hear him.
You don't want to hear him?
No.
Well, you don't have to, darling. Are you gonna go play in the basement? Now, for
Yes, Dad.
context, I just got home, like
Yeah.
literally
Well,
5 minutes ago, and
Mom,
so someone wants to. Oh,
Oh,
okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Hey, honey, it's okay, it's okay. It's all good. Yeah. So someone's very excited to
yeah.
see me. So yeah, why don't you go play in the basement, sweetie?
I
Go play.
can play in the basement.
She'll go play in the basement.
Parenting.
Yes. Hi, Genevieve. Hello. Yes. But yeah, so we may have a visitor for some portion of this.
That's all right.
But we shall see how it goes. How are you doing, Bobby?
I'm doing great. Today has been what is it that we're saying now? A full day.
A full day.
Yeah.
Yes. We had a discussion about busyness.
Yeah.
Bobby and I. Was this a recorded discussion or was it
I don't
just
think
like
so. I don't think so. But lately,
yeah.
so for context, I guess
Can
for everybody to know, I've been over and over again. I was telling Maura lately, anytime anybody asks me how are things going, Bobby, I've been saying, "Oh my gosh, everything is just so crazy and so busy." And I started to realize maybe that's just the way it is now, and maybe I just need to stop
That's just life. Yeah, that's
complaining
just
about
life.
it.
Yeah.
And Mora suggested that instead of saying busy, just say it's life is full right now or something.
Yeah.
And so
There's
that's what I'm
lots
doing.
going on. There's lots
Why
going
are you
on.
laughing?
Why am I laughing? Because Bobby's a funny guy.
I am a funny guy.
So hilarious.
You guys heard it.
That's right. That's right.
What you talking about?
Oh, I don't know. Sorry. I have to parent and podcast.
You don't have to
The two P's.
apologize. We all get it. We all get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like having the extra excitement in the room.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got a treat away.
Did she said
Hello,
her
Tweep.
feet went away?
No, she said she already had a treat.
Oh,
Yes,
I didn't
we're
even
working,
hear
we're
that
trying to
even
bribe.
part of the
That's
way, right?
Yeah. No, it's hard to hear. It's hard to hear.
Um, greetings, fellow science
Uh,
lovers. Yes, greetings, fellow science lovers. So,
all right, just give me 1 second here.
sure. Logan's here. We've got Tweep just joined us. Hey, Tweep. And Nick. I already said hi to Nick, but yeah, finally be able to listen live. That's WoW got WoW booted, World of Warcraft booted up and ready to listen to some science. Let's do it. I heard the
All right.
I heard the tail end of that.
Yeah, extraction complete. Oh, sorry, guys.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Hey, you
Well,
know what?
we'll,
She's excited to see you, but you know, sometimes.
I did have plans to try to sneak in, but failed. I failed.
That's okay.
It's tough. It's tough when you miss your mom all day. So
It is tough.
I'll have to go say goodnight later.
That's all right. We are a family friendly podcast, and we
do
are
our
a
best.
family loving podcast. We love families.
Yeah, we do our best. Yeah.
I have to say something though about the
Mm-hmm.
busyness that I've been, or the fullness. It's fullness in more than one way, Maura. That was
Okay.
I just figured out that was a great segue. And
Congratulations on your segue.
Yeah, you know what's really great about segues when you point them out. So I've realized that lately everything's been so full, life's been so full of stuff lately that meal times have been so very fast, and I found that I've been overeating a lot lately.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's because, not just because meal times have been fast. That's not what I mean. There are some fast meal times, but not all meal times are fast. But it's like I have been overeating lately at meals, and I think it's because when I sit down to eat, it's like this is the time I get to sit down and just
Mm-hmm.
exist for a minute. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I think subconsciously, I've been thinking, if I just if I just keep eating food, I don't have to get up and do stuff again.
Ah, you're extending the time.
Yeah.
You're extending the time. You're taking your breaks where you can.
Yeah, and so I've been I don't like the feeling of being full. I don't know if you're
No,
the same
yeah.
way.
Mm-hmm.
So I've tried to avoid
Like
it.
overfull. Yeah.
Yeah, but even like it even makes me uncomfortable when I'm close to feeling full. You know that
Hmm.
there's a gradient as you get
For
closer
sure. For
to,
sure.
and so that close to full feeling is and I'm not talking about I'm not talking about done eating. I'm talking about full and over full. Anyway, I just don't like that feeling. And so I try not to, but I've been feeling over full a lot more lately.
Have you found that the older you get, the less you can tolerate the feeling of being really full?
Yes, that's
Because
absolutely
I have
true.
been finding that
Yeah.
of late in
And
the last five
I
odd
think
years.
it's absolutely related to the fact that the older I get, the gassier I get as well.
Interesting. That I haven't noticed in
Yeah.
my personal experience,
Yeah.
but noted, noted.
I'm as I get older, I find myself complaining a lot more I didn't sleep well last night, must have had too much to eat, or oh, I
Hmm.
had too much cheese and milk. Now I'm gassy.
Okay, does that affect your sleep, do you find, or your dreams? I think we've had this conversation. I've never found that food changes what I dream about, but a lot of people say it does.
I have not recorded this in any kind of a journal of any kind, so it's
Yeah.
all subjective and I'm sure biased and correlational, but I do seem to notice that when I eat badly, or like, well, let's say I am it's I'm having a good fun, I'm feeling overconfident and decide I'm going to go get some fast food burgers and fries, and then later that
Right.
night I'm like, "You know what? Let's
Ooh.
keep this party going. Let's go get some ice cream."
Yeah, nice, nice. Sounds like a good night.
Yeah, and so when I have a night like that, I often find that I don't sleep very well.
Hmm,
Um,
interesting.
and I thought that for a while I would say that to Stephanie, and she would roll her eyes, and I would also be like, "Yeah, I know, I sound like an old person, and it's probably not true." But I read somewhere later that eating too close to eating too much too close to bedtime can um, can affect your sleep, because having all that food sort of kicks off a lot of metabolic processes, like food. And Alex, Dr. Alex Reynolds,
Yeah.
talked to us about
Yeah.
sleep. I
Hmm.
asked her about that. She said yes, there are a lot of triggers, circadian triggers, like things that trigger that circadian rhythm. There's cues that it's nighttime and time
Yep.
for bed. Light is of course the big one, but there are other ones too, like and eating food is a big signal to your brain that, like, we're not going to sleep yet.
Well,
Um,
there's a phenomenon that happens um with night shift workers. I have heard this from my husband, and they don't get hungry between like 2:30 to 5
who is this that does it?
a.m. night shift workers.
Oh,
And it's kind of to the point where it's like food is sort of revolting, like, oh, I
really?
couldn't possibly eat in that time when most of us are in our kind of deepest sleep. They can't eat because they're just off their rhythm.
Right.
And there's, yeah, sleep and eating are deeply connected.
That's
So
yeah.
yeah.
So I think that yes, I sleep poorly when I eat too much at night. Doesn't always stop me though. It rarely stops me.
Well, because that's a consequence, right? It's not like an immediate effect, and that's what it's hard to do, like
Yeah,
to deal with
the
consequences.
immediate effect of having ice cream while I'm watching something on Netflix is much more powerful.
Right? It's a lot. That's a good strong dopamine hit.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and Tweep is eating ice cream right now.
Ice
so.
cream is the best. That's
Ice
my
cream's
favorite
great.
dessert.
Ice cream.
We've talked about desserts before, right? Don't tell me. You
Have we
like
talked about dessert?
Yeah, well I'm sure you and I have
Generally.
talked yeah.
Yeah.
You like maybe I'm crazy. You like pie, don't you?
Yeah, I'm not like super into pie,
Oh,
but I
okay.
like it
For
well
some reason
enough.
I thought pie was like a dessert that you really liked a lot.
No, I'm more of a chocolate cake kind of
Ooh.
vibe. More on the
like really cold chocolate cake or not.
That's very specific.
You know, like there's the kind of like nice dense chocolate cake that you put that has like a you know, you put in the refrigerator and it's got the
Huh.
like sort of like not buttercream chocolate buttercream icing, but it's like a tougher chocolate icing. It's like a specific kind of chocolate cake. I just don't know what it's called.
Like McCain's.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, I guess that's a Canadian thing. It's like a chocolate cake you put in your fridge.
Yeah, so probably then. And it's just
Sure.
chocolate with chocolate icing.
yes.
Yeah. So
And it's in like
probably
little
that.
spikies.
It's like a
Anyway, yeah,
ganache.
that's
a
fine
ganache.
too. My preferred dessert has a lot of chocolate and caramel.
Ooh, caramel and
A little bit of
chocolate.
salt in there. The caramel and
Oh.
chocolate's my numero uno combination.
Take everything you just described and put it into some vanilla ice cream and mix it up. That
Sounds great
delicious.
too. That sounds awesome. Now okay. Actually, no, I'm gonna save this one for the top of the show because I got some American candy this week, and I got something to say.
Uh-oh.
About this American candy. But we will. That was what I wanted to talk about on the top of the show.
Good. So then
Genevieve wants to see your tattoo.
my tattoo. Oh, here you go, Genevieve.
Yes.
It's this. It's Weezer. And Genevieve, if
That's a
you're
band old people like, Genevieve.
yeah, if your parents are good parents, they'll let you listen to Weezer.
Let you listen. I mean, it's not like inappropriate.
No, it's
Really?
not.
I don't
No.
think so.
Which is why. So I should say not let you listen to, but they will introduce you to. My 8-year-old Kaylee loves Weezer actually. So me and Stephanie smile all the time because we'll be sitting on the couch. They'll be taking a shower, and Kaylee will be in the shower singing Weezer songs. So it's very cute.
That's good. That's good.
But,
Weezer's a great band.
yeah, I like them a lot. And yeah, that's what my tattoo is, Genevieve. So since you've got something you want to talk about at the top of the show, I'll tell this story here. It's not really a story. It's just me telling you I went in and did some science again with the
Fun.
with some of the kids at school. Some 4th graders this time. We did they're learning about the senses. And in the context of animals, you know, like how different animals use different senses to learn about their environment and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so today I took them inside an eyeball. So we did a camera obscura thing.
Nice. I was gonna say Miss Frizzle.
Yeah. I shrunk them down to the size.
Put them on a school bus.
Yeah. No, we turned a room into a camera obscura. So if anybody's listening doesn't know what a camera obscura is, it's basically you can make them small. You don't have to like be inside of one, but the general principle is you have a dark box and you poke a hole in it and then you let light in, and then the small aperture of the hole in the box will cause whatever is outside, whatever that hole is looking at, it'll be projected on the inside walls of the box. It's how a camera works. It's how your eyeball works. And so we did that with a room at the school. It was like a small office. One of the staff members had. They let us borrow the office for the afternoon, and covered all the windows, and I brought a bunch of
Nice.
lights in because it wasn't an outside-facing window,
Mm.
which is the best way to do it because the sunlight is like it's.
Yeah, so bright.
I have learned that it's very difficult to recreate the brightness of the sun.
Turns out, you guys, the sun's really bright.
Yeah,
It's
even
so bright.
from 93 million miles or however far away it is, it's still
Something
very
like that.
bright.
Yeah.
And so the original plan was, because it was an inside hallway window that we were covering, the original plan was I was going to set up a bunch of lights and just shine it on the wall opposite this window and then and basically do the same thing you would do. Because when you do this and you set this up, you normally do it on an outside facing window, and you black everything out. It's pitch black in the room, and then you poke a little hole and you can see everything from outside is projected onto the walls of the room, right? It's
Neat.
very cool. But I was going to try and do that, but inside, the opposite wall was going to be projected on the inside wall of this room. That wasn't working. So instead I modified it and I set up like a basically a box. I set a wet floor sign on top of a box, and I lit that really, really bright and put that kind of close to the window. And
Okay.
and so the image, after we sat in the room for about 15 minutes in pitch black and I talked to them about how eyes work and everything, I was able to hold up a piece of paper, like a white piece of paper.
Nice.
And the image of the wet floor sign was projected onto the white piece of paper, and they thought it was cool.
Cool.
They were like, "Oh, that's awesome," so that was
Yeah,
satisfying
yeah.
and everything. But it was fun. It was talking to them about how eyes work, and they asked all the right questions that I was hoping they would ask, like, "Why is it upside down?" And stuff like that. And I got to tell them I actually didn't answer that because I felt like I would need a whiteboard. I said, "I want you guys to think about that and try to think of why you think it is. Next time I'm in the class, we'll talk about it." But I did get to tell them that that's exactly what happens on your eye.
Yeah.
The image is, when it goes through your pupil and it's projected on the back of your eyeball, it's upside down, and your brain
That's right.
flips it over for you.
Yeah.
So it was cool. It's neat. I love, this. Everybody listening knows this. I love going into the classroom and teaching kids about cool
Being Miss
sciencey stuff.
Frizzle.
Yeah, exactly. One day
love
I'll
it.
get the shrinking correct.
Yep.
This time, one of these days, I won't lose a kid to the attempts of shrinking them.
I mean, Miss Frizzle almost did a couple times. I'm just saying, Arnold had a point. Okay,
Yeah.
y'all. Arnold had a point.
Yeah, that's right. He was the one who was always like, "Why are we doing this?"
He's like, I'm worried. I'm like, and as an adult, I'm like, Arnold, you get it. Like,
Yeah.
there's a one episode where they of the recent one where they were like literally accepting their death. They were all sitting around. They're like, oh, this was so fun though, but we're gonna be swallowed by the sun. And I was like, holy moly, this is not
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Miss Frizzle, you shouldn't be doing this.
yeah. They must
But
not
anyway.
go home and tell their parents.
Well, I think that's actually part of the whole thing. They're like, there's like a conspiracy of silence that you're not supposed to, you don't tell anyone
Miss Frizzle's
that,
like,
and like someone's gonna
"Do
ruin it for
not."
you,
Yeah.
right? Like, but also these children are gonna die, so.
Look, Arnold really did have it right, and be
Yeah,
like Arnold is what we're saying. If
Yeah.
if a teacher comes to you and says that she's gonna shrink you down inside of a school bus,
Miss Frizzle wouldn't kill you to do a safety assessment.
yeah,
Like, we all want to go on adventures, but all of us want to survive the adventures. So let's just, find a balance.
Logan says Miss
Maybe not the
Frizzle's
sun.
permission slips are basically NDAs. Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Anywho.
What a great show, though. I love that show, and my kids love
It's
that
so
show.
good. It's so awesome. Like I loved Magic School Bus, and I love the current version.
Mhm.
But there are some moments I'm like, ha.
Mm. Yeah. Do we have notes for this episode? Yes, we do.
Are we? What are we doing here? What podcast are we recording? There are notes. Yes,
I
indeed.
got them. Yeah, I've been
In
so
the books, the parents know. Okay, Nick says the parents know when you read the books.
Oh, I didn't know there were books.
Yeah, I think they originally were a book.
No way. Originally, why is everything good a book first?
money. It's cheaper to write a book than to make a show, so they have to know it's going to work before they.
I've been thinking that I would like to write a book, a children's book.
I love that. Love that for you.
I don't think my first attempt at a children's book would be science stuff, though.
No.
No. I need to find an illustrator. I mean, I know someone who could illustrate
Mhm.
this book, but I guess really all it takes is asking.
Yeah.
I guess I'm the only one standing in my way.
There you go. What would be the theme of your book or story?
Well, I need to write it first because there are some difficulties, some challenges in writing the stories that I would like to write, and I wanted there to be a whole series of them,
Oh,
and
fun.
it would be children's books about Greek mythology.
Oh, cool.
So, but as you can probably imagine, there's some you have to figure some things out because many of those stories, as they were originally told, are not child friendly. So
Turn your ears red.
yeah, so I'd have to figure.
There's a
out.
lot of that's kind of a thing right now, actually.
That's why I think it would be so great to do right now.
Yeah.
Because
totally.
I think it's like Greek mythology is kind of having a moment.
It's having a moment. Mhm.
And so yeah, I think I want to do that.
Well, if you want to do stick figures for illustrations, Tweep has offered. So,
well, unfortunately, Tweep, you might not know this. I've got the stick figure thing already on lock.
yeah, you got it handled.
Yeah, I made a whole YouTube series on
That's true.
with making drawing stick figures.
That is true. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tweep.
So, yeah.
Your skill set is no longer needed. We don't have a position for you here at Bobby Frankenberger Publishing anymore.
Yeah. All right. Let's do it. You want to do it? You want to do a show?
I want to do a show.
All right. Had to burp first.
You good?
Yeah.
I've been drinking fizzy water, so
Let
the
me-
danger's always there.
Never mind.
No, computer's off. You good?
Yeah. The computer's off. I was thinking about. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to do it. Are you going to need a break at some point?
Sorry, say that again.
Are you going to need a break at some point?
Probably. I'm trying to decide. Is it better to go up and get her all excited and then be sad when I leave, or?
Well, if you need a break,
I'm gonna say maybe.
If you need a break, you call it and let me know.
Yes, I will. I will check with my life partner.
Okay.
And then we can start.
You start it when you're ready. I'm ready.
Okay. Hey everyone, it's October 7th, 2024, and you're listening to All Around Science. My name's Maura Armstrong.
And I'm Bobby Frankenberger, and we are two huge fans of science, here to get you caught up on what's going on in the world of science and just generally geek out about science stuff. And today, we are joined by our live chat room. And this month, they actually heard me say that. So
Woo! We figured out how to stream on YouTube.
Yeah, I know, we've been doing this for quite a while. But we got it right this time.
Yes.
Yeah, we're doing our live episode, our live show recording for the month of October right now, and we've got all sorts of people hanging out with us. Logan, Tweep, Nick, lots of people that we enjoy hanging out with, and you could come and join us too if you want, because it's free to everybody
make
now.
some noise.
Yeah, make some noise. We can hear you. I can hear you.
Well, we can see what they're writing.
Yeah. But yeah, come and join us. There'll be another one next month, and then the one after the month after that, and it's open to everybody now. So just pay attention on Facebook or in Discord or something like that. So yeah.
We will let you know. We do let you know at the start of shows too, but last show we kind of switched things up on you. So
yeah.
Oh, we're getting party emojis. Yeah, party emojis.
Woo-woo. All right.
Okay, I have to talk to you about something.
Oh, good. Okay.
I don't think you realize.
Normally, when someone says that, it's serious.
This is very serious.
Okay.
I don't think you realize the depth of privilege you have as an American.
Oh.
To have such a rich selection of candy.
Oh. I mean, we do have lots
with
of candy.
flavors that I could only see in my dreams here in Canada.
What, like
My
Skittles?
husband like it's really quite something when you start to, there's a lot of like the basic flavors, we have very similar candies, but like the cool weird ones almost always are like astronomically better than anything we can get here. My
Yeah.
husband came back from a trip to the States
Yeah.
last week, and he brought with him cold brew caramel M&Ms.
Ooh, I've never even had those.
They are so I have been dreaming about them since I had like he's
Wow.
like, "Here you go, here's some candy," and I was like, "Oh god, I just ate." I think I ate maybe 2/3 of the bag,
Oh my gosh,
and
I
my
know what to
my
get more of
children
for
were like
Christmas now.
scavenging. Oh my gosh.
So
It's
what makes them
so
cold brew as
good.
opposed to just coffee flavored?
I don't know. I think that's just like,
It's probably just the trendy thing to
yeah, I think
market
it's a
it
trendy
as.
thing to say. It's
So,
just
but it's
coffee
basically
flavored.
just coffee flavored caramel
Coffee
M&Ms.
flavored caramel M&Ms,
That
and I
sounds
love caramel
delicious.
M&Ms, and the
Yeah,
coffee edition, like, they just did it perfectly, and I
I love coffee
loved
and
it
chocolate,
so
and
much.
caramel M&Ms are my favorite M&M.
They're the best. They're the best
Yeah,
M&M.
I've got to find these also.
I will eat them until I feel sick, like, I can't. Caramel M&Ms are so good, and then the coffee ones, I'm like, "Wow, this is
I love us.
it's something else."
There are a couple of snacks for me that are like that, where if they are put in front of me, all reason is leaves my body, and I.
It's my hand just automatically goes from the bag to my mouth, and that's all I'm gonna be doing for the next 20 odd minutes, maybe more.
So caramel M&Ms are one of them for you. Any other ones?
Mhm, mhm. There's like, these really good, it's like chocolate covered fruit,
Just in general?
like not in general, I can't remember the name of the brand, but it's like a blueberry, acai berry covered, chocolate covered.
Oh, so are there like
Ch
dried fruit that are covered
Mhm,
in chocolate?
mhm.
Yeah.
Something about them, I'm like, "These are so good." And, most cheesy crackers
Really? Like
of any
Cheez-Its?
type. Sort of, Cheez-Its not too much, but think more like goldfish. I really like
Oh,
goldfish.
goldfish. That's
Yeah,
funny.
I'll chat out on
Yeah,
some good
yeah.
goldfish. The cheesier the better too. I'm always on the lookout for some good cheesy crackers. The best cheesy cracker ever made was the Kraft Dinner crackers, but they discontinued those.
Have you ever had cheese straws?
I don't think so.
Oh, well, Maura, why didn't we have this conversation before you came here? Because these are like
I
a
should have.
southern treat, right?
Oh,
Like
okay.
they're a thing.
Describe.
It's so hard to describe. It's like cheese. It's like a cheese. It's like if you took a cheese sauce
Okay.
and extruded it through an extruder, and it went through the same process that like I don't know, like you know like like a almost like a Cheeto would go through. You know how Cheetos are made? They're like pushed through an extruder and almost like puffed and dried
Okay.
almost instantly.
Uh
Cheese
huh.
straws are not done instantly because you can make them at home. Like they can be homemade and everything, but
I
they're
found a
just like
recipe.
these. I don't know how to describe them. They're just so good, and
It sort of looks like a French fry.
yeah, yeah, and they're what made me think of it is you said the cheesier the better. These are very cheesy.
Oh my gosh, that's like mostly cheese. Extra sharp cheddar, cayenne, that's key. Ooh, dry mustard,
Yeah, they're
flour,
very
butter,
very
water, and
good.
then you like, oh, that looks so good. My mouth is watering. That looks
It's
amazing.
like it's a southern treat. So
I
I,
mean, you guys do it right in the South. It is
especially when it
all
comes to
all
things like
all the
this.
butter.
Yeah. For me, it's it's a little weird. So there's this dip that it's not like a crazy recipe um or something that people may not have. I think it's on the back of the box of Lipton onion soup.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you just take dry Lipton onion soup mix and dump it into a tub of sour cream and mix it together.
That sounds
Uh,
great.
yeah, and then you let it sit in the fridge for like an hour or two, and it kind of gets, it turns into a dip. It's like softens up the
Right.
crunchy onion
Yeah.
bits. Um,
Yeah. Sounds great.
put that in front of me. and a bag of pretzels, and the entire tub will be gone. I don't.
That sounds magical. That sounds so good. It sounds like a recipe for terrible breath also.
Oh my god, no one in the house likes it really, except for me. So
Well, that's even
I
better.
know. So it's like one of those things that I only nowadays I can only treat myself to, like twice a decade or something, you know?
Yeah, you got to know your limits, and some things you just like a little bit too much.
Yeah. Because we've definitely been to the grocery store before, and Stephanie was like, "Oh, you know what sounds good right now? You know that onion dip and some pretzels. Should we get that?" And I'll be like, "No, it hasn't been long enough, Steph."
No, please, please.
Yeah.
I still, my stomach hasn't recovered from the last time.
Yeah. So, but that's the one for me. And in terms of candy, gummy bears, I can kill a bag
Oh yeah.
of gummy bears. Yeah, I love gummy bears.
I'm not a fan. Not a fan.
What? That is
I don't know, I
okay.
just
More for me, really.
yeah, exactly. Okay, noted.
Yeah.
We do have good gummy bears in Canada,
Do
as far as I
you?
know, but I'm sure Americans have better ones. I don't know.
No. I like the Haribo gummy bears are the best, and they're from
Oh,
what,
they're
Germany?
like German, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those Germans, they know how to gummy a bear.
But I've never had the Canadian gummy bears, so
I don't know. I don't know if they're any different. We'll have to do a comparison.
we'll have to do a swap. I'll give you some cheese straws. You give me some gummy bears.
I know where there's some good like gourmet gummy bears. But
Put gourmet in front of
they're
anything,
pricey.
and it's better.
I know they're good. I like those gummy bears. But anywho, now we're hungry and we're no closer to understanding any more about the current science in the world. So let's get to that.
All
Let's
right.
talk about science.
Because
I'm just
sour
checking
cream
to
is
see.
gross. Tweep. Oh.
I mean, it is in the name. Cream that's gone sour. I like sour
I've never
cream.
really thought about that.
But like I get why it could be like some people would be like, ugh.
Well, I don't like Greek yogurt. And Greek yogurt and sour cream are so close.
They have a similar taste profile, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know why I don't like Greek yogurt, but I do like sour cream. But I don't like Greek yogurt. We miss saying
Yeah,
goodnight
they're
to
different
Genevieve.
enough.
Good night, Genevieve, if you're still there. Yeah. I like fruit yogurt.
Oh my gosh,
too.
we gotta stop talking about food. I haven't had dinner. Like I literally got home, sat down, started recording. So
Yeah. Just getting you primed.
yeah. Getting ready.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. I appreciate you thinking about my appetizers.
What is for dinner?
I don't know. Leftovers probably.
That's what
I'm
I
sure.
had. I had some leftover
Sure,
pizza.
Scott put something together. Oh, okay, seriously, we have to stop talking about food.
Isn't leftover pizza the best pizza?
It really is so cold and tasty.
Oh, I warmed mine up in the oven, but I do love a cold leftover pizza as well. All right. Peach.
Shall we jump in?
Yeah. Okay. Let's do it.
Let's do it. At the center of the M87 galaxy is a supermassive black hole with a mass 6.5 billion times that of our sun.
That is super massive.
Super duper ultra massive.
Wow.
That black hole emits a 3,000 light year long jet of plasma across the galaxy.
Wait, hold on. I think I almost didn't let that sink in so the jet that comes out of the center of this supermassive black hole, like every black hole emits a jet of stuff from each pole, basically. This one is 3,000 light years long.
3,000 light years.
I just learned last night reading a space book to my daughter that a light year is 5.8 trillion miles. And this is 3,000 of them.
It is incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Like I can't even. The furthest thing we've sent out is like 20 light minutes away.
Yeah, right?
Voyager 1 or 2. It's I cannot wrap my brain around this because I did not evolve to compute these kinds of numbers. For reference, also, for further reference, M87, the galaxy itself, is about 120,000 light years across.
Jeez, the whole galaxy.
So the whole galaxy. So the galaxy itself, very, very large. And when you think about how giant this jet is, it is only a small portion of the size of this galaxy. So it
Wow.
doesn't affect the whole entire galaxy. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously it does for other reasons, but the jet is not it sort of peters out at some point.
right.
Ours, by the way, 105,000 light years across the
Oh,
Milky Way.
comparable size then.
Yeah, similar, I guess. Give or take 15,000 light years. So anything on the path of this jet would pretty much be vaporized, right? It's moving nearly at the speed of light. It's a bunch of plasma with an obscene amount of energy. So if you have something in the way, it's gonna interact somehow. But it seems like something interesting is also happening nearby. What astronomers have noticed is that there are twice as many expected novas in proximity to this jet. Twice as many as expected.
Oh,
Now, um, 15 short weeks ago, Bobby, you explained novas.
yeah.
Um, they are stellar explosions that occur in binary star systems. So you would have a red star and a white dwarf specifically that are together under each other's gravitational influence, functionally like us looking in the sky, we would see one star,
Right.
unless they're very, very close. And the white dwarf siphons hydrogen from the red star,
Yeah.
using it as fuel and burning through it. So it eventually will pull enough hydrogen from its partner star that
Hmm.
the pressure on the white dwarf will build up, because it's just the amount of mass that's adding in and the reactions that are happening. The pressure builds up so much that it explodes.
Right.
Um, but that's not the end. It'll settle back into its old pattern. It comes after the explosion and things settle down. It goes back to pulling hydrogen from its neighbor to begin the cycle again. So this is an explosion and I guess settled cycle.
Right.
Explode,
Yeah.
explode, siphon, explode, siphon, explode, siphon. And if you want a more detailed explanation, you can go back to episode 199, Watch a Star Explode This Summer. That'll give you a bit more. That was what we called it.
Yeah.
You're giving me a weird look like you're
Oh,
confused
no,
about
no,
why
no.
I'm talking about explosion.
Nope.
Okay. um so that is what I mean when I say that this jet, we see more novas next to it than we would expect. Those are the novas that I'm talking about, because
Right.
it's this constant cycle. Now, we saw this because of Hubble. We were able to make some observations, or I suppose astronomers were able to make these observations because of the Hubble telescope.
Okay.
Now, when Hubble first launched in 1990, they were able to look at Galaxy M87, but it always kind of featured a touch of mystery
Mm.
because they noticed some events that could have been novae early on, but the tech they were working with at the time was not really able to capture it very well. They needed a wider angle to be able to see more of this jet and to be able to see more clearly with their upgraded hardware. So this eventually they have serviced Hubble a couple of times, and they did replace the camera into something that could zoom out a little bit and get a wider view and compare the number of nova events between the region near the jet and the region adjacent to it,
Okay.
like sort of opposite to it rather.
Right.
And they found twice as many novas near the jet, novae.
Interesting.
Now, what's really cool is that this was obvious to the astronomers as soon as they saw it. And I say that because a lot of astronomers' work is to comb through data to find small variations
Mm-hmm.
and identify significant findings through mathematical analysis.
Right.
Like, you're not going to be like, oh, look, there's 60 here and 30 here. That has twice as many. That doesn't happen a lot. In this case, it was clear from the beginning, just looking at the data, that something was going on. So we don't exactly know for sure what it is. It could be that somehow the plasma itself is supplying hydrogen to the white dwarfs
Yeah.
somehow, and that's accelerating the nova cycle, making it twice as fast. Um, they think it could also be heating up the companion stars,
Mm.
the red companion stars, so that increases their energy, increases the amount of hydrogen that's being transferred over to these white dwarfs, because that's really the amount of hydrogen is what triggers the nova. If you have enough of it, eventually
Right.
it will trigger. So somehow they think it's probably getting more hydrogen to it. I guess it could be something else, but that seems like the most likely explanation. But yeah, it this incredible black hole making this incredible, unbelievable jet of plasma launching 3,000 light years across is causing these amazing explosions to happen twice as often.
That is very interesting. Some of the other questions I have that pop into my head are, so we know that these novae, as they're being described, come in binary systems, right? You've got like a
Yeah.
white dwarf next to a red giant. Typically, that's how it
Yeah.
works. So I wonder in the neighboring areas, and they might not be able to see this, or my question here to an expert might have an obvious answer. But I wonder, are these, so white dwarves don't start as white dwarves? And that binary system is
Mhm.
two functioning stars before the white dwarf
Yeah.
becomes a white dwarf.
Right.
So are there binary stars in the surrounding areas where there are less novae in this, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, is it possible that another thing that's happening is that the jet of plasma from this supermassive black hole has accelerated the process of the white dwarfs becoming white dwarfs?
So,
Like,
it's making it burn out faster because
yeah,
that's like an
yeah.
old star.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it won't nova until it turns into a white dwarf.
Mhm.
And so is that part of what's happening? Is that maybe in the whole area there's an evenly spaced number of binary systems, and it just happens to be in the jet. The ones that will become white dwarves have become white dwarves sooner. That's just speculation. I have absolutely
That's
no
yeah. I
expertise to
wonder,
base that on. I'm just wondering.
and I'm not sure. This is a galaxy that, in astronomical terms, is fairly close by.
Yeah.
I wonder if you'd be able to see how many white dwarfs by themselves are nearby to this jet.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I
know
don't
they're
know.
not very bright, so it might be hard to tell
And then
and
that's the other
compare
thing
that.
is maybe there are white dwarves and red giants, like maybe those binary systems also exist nearby. They're just not novaing as often. And I mean that's kind of what you're saying, is that they don't nova as often.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just really interesting.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And I love that 34 years later, Hubble is still a window to new discoveries about our universe. That's
Yeah, no
just
kidding.
always
That
amazes me.
Hubble, man, that Hubble was supposed to stop doing what it was doing a long time ago.
They just
It won't.
build
It
them
just
well at
won't give
NASA.
up.
They build them well. What's your preferred supernova flavor? Red wine or champagne? That's very funny.
Yeah, I said rosé,
That's
but I
good.
don't know how to make the accent e. So,
Rosé,
yeah.
is that a song? Rosé supernova?
No, I was just being funny. Rosé is
I see.
a wine.
Got it.
It wasn't a
Well,
good joke.
No, no.
Mine wasn't. I'm not making fun of you, Logan.
No, Logan's was good. Logan's was good. I I didn't even catch on that both Red Wine Supernova and Champagne Supernova are referencing wine, both of them. I just
Yeah.
didn't think of. I don't know.
Mhm.
That's one song I think I've heard too often.
Champagne
Champagne
Supernova.
Supernova. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't mean anything anymore, you know?
Oh right, yeah. It's just this. That's just. It's just the title of the song
Yeah, yeah.
in your head.
You know what I found out about what's the
Oasis.
not Oasis, Waterfalls by TLC.
Yeah.
Do you know what it's about?
Oh, it's sad, isn't it?
It's very sad. Yeah,
Yeah.
somebody with like someone dying of AIDS and like from drug use essentially.
Yeah.
Because somebody said, oh, it's I heard it on like a show. Oh, that's what that's about, and I was like, what? And then I went and read the lyrics. I was like, oh, wow, that's like it's obviously about that.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
like even secret. It's funny how some songs you don't really realize until you
Yeah,
read the
yeah.
words.
It's like what's the classic one? It's not classic, but a commonly referenced song that is like that. It's Hey Ya from by
Yeah.
Outkast. That song is it's about two people falling out of love.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And splitting up, and if you really just read the lyrics and think about it, and like pay attention to what they're saying, it's a really sad song.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Pumped Up
Semi-Charmed
Kicks
Life.
is another one. Oh my gosh, yeah, that song's
Semi-Charmed
disturbing.
Life. You would never know.
Yeah.
Pumped Up Kicks though. That one people list that one, but I always kind of heard
That's
it
true. I
because
always
it's in the chorus.
It's just it tricks you. That's all. It's just you're like
Mhm.
but it is not a like it is very obvious what that song is about. But it's just the first couple times you hear it, even though you hear it, you're still just like
yeah.
But
Like, wait, what?
it's a
What
fun
did he just
song
say?
anyway. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, Semi-Charmed Life. Look up the lyrics to that one. Whew. It's it's rough.
Yeah,
But
that is a rough one. Also about drug use.
Yes. We at work we had a karaoke thing. We did like a big alumni event for our 40th anniversary, and a bunch of people who used to work at the Science Center came out, and it was really fun. And there was karaoke, and so me and my coworkers were going to do a group song, and it is hard to find a work appropriate song to sing. Like all of them are about something, like something that you just don't want to sing about at work.
Yeah.
Even the one we ended up picking, I was like, this is maybe just a little on the verge, just a little.
Yeah.
But not like it was fine. But yeah, there was it was tough. It was tough to pick the right one.
It's you know what else is hard when you're doing karaoke is finding, like, if you want to sing a duet with somebody. I find it really hard to find, because if it's not like a Disney song, it's kind of hard to find a good duet, I feel like.
You know, I did actually. I was looking for good duets, and if you go on Spotify and look for karaoke duets, you'll find some good options.
Oh, I need to peruse and add some duets to my karaoke list then.
To your repertoire.
Yeah.
I did at the same night I did Shake It Off as a duet. That was fun.
What was your pick? Logan asked for
Uptown
karaoke.
Funk.
Uptown Funk
one. Yeah, Uptown Funk.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. There's like a couple things that are suggestive, but not in
it's like have you ever watched a movie with your kids and that you'd seen 100 times, and you're like, oh, this will be good and fun to watch with them, and then you realize, whoa, there's some wait a minute.
Yeah, that happened to me with Back to the Future, actually.
Really?
Yeah, there's a whole scene. I think it's the first movie where I was like, I forgot about this, and I just fast forwarded it.
It just happened to us. We watched Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
Isn't that not really a kids movie though?
It's PG-13, which we're okay with our kids watching.
Sure.
But and we're fine with like language and stuff like that, but there's like a whole like really um over the top sex scene in that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now nothing and nothing's shown or anything like that, but it's just very much like the kids are asking questions and you're like, "Oh, great. Okay."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what are they doing? And you're like, "Oh, well,
Like, okay. I wasn't expecting to have to explain this.
yeah, I thought we were just going to watch Jim Carrey try to tuck out his butt."
Yeah, right. Yeah, you forget.
Yeah.
That also has happened to me with parents. I watched uh whose comedy special? It might have been John Mulaney's comedy special with my mother-in-law.
Oh,
And I was like,
yeah.
"Oh,
John Mulaney's comedy is yeah. Yeah.
He's not super dirty, but like he's not clean.
Yeah,
So it's not
he's
like
definitely not
yeah,
clean
yeah.
and he's not super explicit, but he's definitely talking about things that you
Mm,
might not
mm,
want, like depending
no.
on your relationship with your parents.
I um what was the one I watched with my mom? Oh, it was The Good Place, which I was like, this is such a fun and wholesome thing. And I'm like, no, this is not. This
Yeah.
is not for my mom. Tweep remembers asking his dad what pole dancing was. When I saw it in a movie magazine, I was confused as to why people would do that. I had to explain that recently, actually.
Oh no. Pole
I had to explain. Yes, that's all I'll say because we're a PG-13 podcast.
Yeah, yeah,
But
exactly.
yes, I had to explain that to an 8-year-old, my 8-year-old.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
It's parenting
and
is fun.
it was very confusing to him. He's like, "Why?" I was like, "I really can't explain it adequately to you. I don't know."
I mean, people like what they like, you know.
Yeah, that's just maybe when you're an adult, I've never found it interesting in any major way, but
But some people do.
I honestly I don't understand why people do it either. So
Yeah. Parenting is fun. Very fun.
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
You know what else, and I'll leave it at this. The end of Ace Ventura: Pet Detective is just the whole ending and the whole real like reveal in that show is very like anti-trans.
Oh,
And I totally didn't even realize that.
yeah,
So,
yeah. You don't think
but
about
you
it.
know, not that this is cutting them slack. I'm not trying to do that, but it was definitely a different time. Like people, you're reminded when you watch movies like that, like, oh, we were our culture was definitely in a different place back then.
I find it hard to stomach some comedies that are about 20 years old.
And that's about
'Cause
how this movie was 1994.
yeah,
Um,
that's 30
yeah,
years old.
30 years, and it was like, oh, I
Ugh.
thought this was funny back then, and it was like it was cringy. It made me uncomfortable. I was like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, the world is moving in a better direction, fortunately.
Truly.
So,
You know, and I also find this is not everyone will agree with me, but I think things are funnier now. 'Cause I
things are
think you
funnier.
have
Yeah.
to yeah, I think comedies are funnier than they used to be because the old comedies just sort of relied on the same joke over and over.
Yeah.
I feel like not that there wasn't good ones, there was, but like
I
you
think in
get into
general,
the same
comedy
tired like
over time has by necessity becomes more nuanced, and that makes it funnier.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it becomes more nuanced and more sophisticated. I didn't want to use the word sophisticated because I think that implies something I'm not trying to imply, like that it's high.
Like yeah, not like people were dumb in the 90s. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
that.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
just it's the whole one. Like part of comedy is subverting expectations, so you have to find creative, new, interesting, nuanced ways to do that. You know, because things have been done. You know, over and over.
That's really true.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm laughing because I'm watching a comedy series right now called Miracle Workers. That
Oh yeah.
is really it's really funny. And that like there's a scene where a character tries to like dig something with a shovel, and then it cuts to a scene of everything on fire, like as if digging something could make things catch. Like, so that was what I was picturing, and that's why I was laughing, not
Yeah.
not because of any other reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anywho, I'm gonna stop talking. We're like way down a rabbit hole
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. We need to get back on track. Let's
Science. We're doing science.
Yeah. All right. I'm ready if you're ready.
Yep.
We're going to talk about space elevators, and I'm going to tell you more. This is one of those things. I'm not starting the feature yet.
Okay.
So I sometimes
yeah.
use this same energy to start
I know that.
letting you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I wasn't sure.
I'm going to want you to ask a lot of questions, because this is one of those things whenever I do these, like, let's just learn about a topic things, I'll probably end up all over the place, and there's no, like, straight line through this, okay?
Well, that is the whole vibe of tonight, so let's do it.
So ask me lots of questions if you have them, and otherwise I'm going to be trying to find a straight line.
Okay.
Oh, and I have to look up who asked this. Shoot.
I'm sorry. No, sorry. It's just something in the notes.
You okay? What happened?
Yep,
What did I put in
I'm
the
fine.
notes?
No,
Was it because it says Google search?
no,
What?
no. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I tried. Again, this is a PG-13 podcast, so I can't say it. You'll find it. You'll get there, and then you'll start laughing, and then.
Is there a? Do I have a typo?
It's a typo.
Oh, okay. All right, man. I'm gonna have this this looming paranoia now that I'm gonna burst out laughing in the middle of it.
Okay, I'm good. I'm thinking about Miracle Work. I'm sorry, you guys. I don't know what is wrong with me right now. It's just that I worked like a long day and then had no like transition time, so I'm very loopy.
All right, I found it.
Okay.
Korath. All right. What?
I don't know. Genevieve went to bed, right? Maybe we can say it when it goes.
Yeah.
The best is when someone laughs at a joke in front of you and then doesn't explain the joke. That's the best. That's true comedy, when you just watch somebody laughing. That's how we do it here.
Yeah. We're masters of comedy on this show. All right, you ready?
Okay.
I'm not. Jesus, Bobby, get it together.
Oh, Tweep and Logan really like us because they've stuck around. And Nick, maybe? Are you still here, Nick?
4, 5. Okay. Now I'm ready. I'm finally ready.
I'm rolling on the floor right now. I know. The comedic stylings of Maura Armstrong here all night, at least for like another hour anyway.
All right, Maura, back in April, we got a question from listener Korath on Discord, asked us about, well, it wasn't really a question. It was just, I'll read what they said. They said, not sure if it's been covered at some point, but could you have a conversation about space elevators? It's one of my favorite science fiction ideas. And so I thought, why don't we have a conversation about space elevators?
Let's do it.
Yeah, since it's one of Korath's favorite science fiction topics.
Well, there you go.
Space elevators are a very cool science fiction idea. And are you familiar with the concept of space elevators?
I mean, it's a little bit tautological, yeah? It's the elevator that brings you up to space.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple concept, right? That's what it is.
That's all I know. That's the story's kind of in the title.
Yeah. So, it's not a new idea either. It's been going on people have been thinking about space elevators for a really, really long time. One thing I read said hundreds of years. But people have been thinking of it for a long time. Back in 1895, there was a all right. Found it. All right.
Okay, you gotta tell them.
The typo was instead of scientists, it was scientits.
Why?
So,
I found it so funny.
all right.
I just wanted you to see it.
Yeah. Now that we've
Okay.
gotten that out of the way.
Okay. Okay, I'm fine. I'm crying. Oh my god.
All right.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay.
We're back.
I'm good. I'm good. I can do this. I'm a professional.
All right. I knew it was coming up too because despite you trying to hold it in, your face was getting like tight, and I was like, "It's coming, isn't it?" All right,
Okay.
here we go.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna start with new idea. All right.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So the idea of space elevators is definitely not a new idea. People have been thinking about this for one source I read said hundreds of years, but the earliest sort of reference I've been able to find about someone talking about a space elevator was from 1895. There was a Russian Konstantin Tsiolkovsky. I'm not.
Nailed
I
it.
can't- Yeah. Came up with an idea of building a tower to space after seeing the Eiffel Tower at the World's Fair.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I love how that like that's how inspiring that would be.
Yeah, I mean, think
Right?
about it. Back then,
Yeah.
it's pretty. It was tall, and it was a
big deal.
unique structure. They were obviously showing off their architectural prowess by building
Mhm.
this tower in the way that it
Mhm.
was built. And so this Russian scientist was inspired to build like a ladder type structure, as tall as you could get it, maybe up to space, right?
Mhm.
And so, not exactly an elevator, but this was like the first kind of documented case of someone not trying, but saying, what if we built a structure that could get us into space? This was obviously
Nice.
before we were traveling to space.
Mhm.
But then, we started building rockets and things that could fly, and then we actually were going to space, sending satellites and stuff. And once we were sending satellites up, there was another Russian scientist, Yuri Artsutinov.
I think you got closer.
In 1960, came up with the idea of, if we've got a satellite up in space, what if we tethered an elevator from an orbiting satellite and then
Mhm.
used that tether to send things up into space? So that is getting much closer to the idea of an actual space elevator, which is
Like a cable, kind of like a gondola.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And then finally, there's been a lot of iterations of these ideas, but in 1975, a U.S. scientist started writing papers about the engineering requirements that would be needed to build an actual like working space. It was no longer, just like back of a napkin kind of fleeting, oh, wouldn't this be cool? People were starting to seriously consider this and what it would require. Things like,
Okay.
and then you started seeing things pop up that are still exist today in the modern idea of what a space elevator would look like. Things like considering geostationary orbits, counterweights, cables, stuff like that, right? Now, what we're talking about is not a typical elevator, right?
Right. Yeah. This is because you at first you imagine like this big tower, but that
Right.
really would never work.
Right, exactly. So in a typical elevator, the cables move, and that lifts elevator cars or
It's
containers
like a
up and
counterweight.
down,
Yeah.
right? But the important thing is that in a typical elevator, the cables are actually moving. In a space elevator, that's not what happens. The cable is stationary. So what do we mean when we say so the typical space elevator kind of exists in three main parts. All right.
Okay.
There are lots of different designs, but all of them pretty much share three things, which is you would have an anchor on the Earth that anchors somewhere near the Earth's equator. Now you would need to,
Okay.
or basically at the Earth's equator, you would have to have an anchor at the Earth, and the anchor is for a cable that is sent out into space. a very
Okay.
thick cable or a very strong cable. The second element is a counterweight somewhere way out in space at the other
Even
end.
further out?
Oh yeah, very far out in space.
Okay.
Um, some many of the designs that I saw talked about putting the counterweight 100,000 kilometers away from Earth.
Oh my gosh, like a third of the way to the moon?
About a
Essentially?
fourth of the way to the moon, but yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And then the third common element is some sort of climbing vehicle that would,
Okay.
you know, that
Yeah.
would actually transport a payload, whether that be people or supplies, right?
Okay.
So those are the three elements. You have a cable that's anchored at the Earth's equator, has a counterweight at the other end,
Okay.
somewhere
Okay.
way out in space, and then some vehicle that goes up and down this cable.
So I have a question that might sound kind of dumb, but why doesn't it fall down?
That's not a dumb question at all. That's a really great question.
Yeah.
Because all the physics, I read a lot of different physics and lots of equations that didn't make a lot of sense to me, and and there are some confusing ideas about it, and there are lots of physics that most of the physics of this are all about how this works in terms of it not falling, right? So the idea is that's partly what you're doing with a counterweight, and the idea of the physics of a space elevator keeping it up all work from centrifugal. There's so many pronounced so many different ways, but centrifugal force, right? Which isn't a real force, by the way. Did you know that? It's not a real force. It's called
It's not?
It's called an what is it? An imaginary force or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Because it's really just inertia.
Because it's like the sum of two forces.
Well, it's an apparent force that happens from the inertia of moving. Whenever you spin, so that people aren't in the dark, centrifugal force is the force whenever you take a weight on a string and spin it around. The centrifugal force is the force pushing that object on the end of the string outward away from the center of the spin, right? But that force doesn't really exist. What it is, the reason that force apparently exists is because as you're spinning it, the object is actually trying to go horizontally.
Oh.
But the string itself is pulling it towards the center. So every time it tries to go horizontally, it gets turned towards the center.
I see.
And a portion of that force, like if you draw out the force diagram, there's a portion of that force that's directed outwards.
I see. So it is the sum of two forces.
Yeah, it's the sum of
I don't know if that's a way
forces.
you can. Right. I guess that's not a good physics to say.
Yeah. So if you were on the object that is at the end of this string, you would feel a force. That's why they call it an apparent force. You would feel a force pulling you outwards.
I used to do a demonstration with that where I'd put a cup of water on the end of it's a little platform on a string, and you spin it around, and it wouldn't spill.
Yeah, that's fun.
Because of the centrifugal forces.
That's what I always said, but I hear so many people say centrifugal now, but I always said centrifugal. But I think you know why people say centrifugal? Because it sounds centrifugal sounds too much like centripetal, which is
because that is different.
Centripetal force is a real force. That's the force pulling in towards the center of a spinning system.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah. All right, we're off topic.
Yeah.
So centrifugal forces.
Centrifugal. Let's stick with centrifugal.
You bet. Centrifugal forces are the ones that are basically keeping this out instead of falling down.
Yeah, because you anchor it at the Earth, at the equator. The Earth is spinning, and so with that counterweight way out in space, it's like the spinning of an object on a string, right?
So that's why you want it on the equator, because that's where the Earth is spinning the fastest.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So you would put it on the equator so that would happen. I think if you don't put it on the equator, there would be too many unstable forces, and it wouldn't easily stay in the direction that it needs to go.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's how it works. Now, why? Can you think of some reasons why would this space elevator, why would, as we've described it so far, why would
Mhm.
this thing be useful, and why do so many people think about building one?
Well, I feel like it's infrastructure really, because now you have a highway for satellites, for um payloads into space.
Yeah.
Like, because the effort to get off of the earth in a rocket is so enormous.
Yep.
But if you didn't need a rocket every single time, now you have this cable that you can travel up. Although it's hard to imagine the insane amount of materials it would take to build 100,000 kilometer cable.
Yeah, and we'll get to the feasibility in a bit. But in terms of how it would be useful, yeah, that's what most people say, is that having some sort of system to get things into space, like, it would be very, very useful. Right now we have
Mhm.
to launch rockets into space. Rockets are expensive. And so it could reduce the cost of putting supplies or people into space. But it would take a lot longer.
Yeah.
Some of the
Yeah.
estimates say that if that a car, they call them a climber, the
Mm.
vehicle that would move up and down this cable, they call it a climber. If the climb rate was 300 kilometers per hour, and they base that 300 kilometers per hour on some other math, which I'll get to in a bit.
Mhm.
But if you were to use a rate of 300 kilometers per hour on average for the trip, it would take 5 days to get
Mm.
up to geosynchronous orbit, which is where you would want anything useful to go,
Right.
is up
Yeah.
to geosynchronous orbit. It would take 5 days, which is way slower than when we launch a rocket up into geosynchronous orbit. But potentially, it would require a lot less energy, which is something we think a lot about, right?
Yes. Yes.
It would require a lot less energy. Now, my first thought when I heard about this a long time ago was, I thought I was being smart. I thought, why would it take less energy to send something up a cable than for a rocket to send something into space? Because like, you're either way, you still have to spend energy to overcome the force of gravity, right?
Yeah. You have to.
The amount
you
of
have to get
energy
there.
that you use, it has to be the same no matter what to get
Mhm.
something into geosynchronous orbit. So how is it possible that just climbing a cable would take less energy than sending a rocket up? Like, it didn't make sense to my sophomoric brain at the time. But do you know why it actually would be less energy, even though it's technically true that to send something straight up to
Mhm.
a certain point requires the same amount of energy no matter what method you take?
Um, I don't know. Does it have to do with the fuel?
Not
Like, you could like
exactly.
refuel partway through?
I'll give you a hint. I know now that it absolutely would take less energy to go up a space elevator, and the reason I know is because I learned it playing Kerbal Space Program.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, then I'm not exactly sure why.
So the reason is because technically, yes, if rockets did shoot straight up, then it would take the same amount of energy, and there really wouldn't be any energy savings.
Okay.
Now it would be better for the environment, but maybe not.
Mm.
Maybe not any energy savings. But rockets do not launch straight up,
That's right.
and you'd be forgiven. You could easily be forgiven for thinking that they do, but they do not. And that's why I said I learned this from Kerbal Space Program, because to launch a rocket into space, you have to learn in that game that rockets spend, yes, a considerable amount of energy going straight up and overcoming the force of gravity, but they also have to go sideways. Because once you get up into orbit, you're not just, it's not like once you get up away from the Earth, you suddenly start circling the Earth. You
Mm.
have to shoot yourself sideways so that what's the famous thing that what was it, Newton or somebody always said, that or I don't know who this is attributed to exactly. For some reason, in my head it says Newton, but said that that orbiting something is basically you have to fall continuously but keep missing the Earth, right?
Right. Yes, I have heard that.
Yeah.
I don't
So
think that was
the
Newton.
idea of putting something into orbit is you have to get it up to that altitude, that distance from the Earth, above the Earth, and you have to give it enough velocity sideways also that it keeps it's going sideways at the same rate, essentially, that it's falling at
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
rate that the Earth is falling away from it at the same time,
Right.
right? So
Right. Yeah.
that's a lot of energy that has to be spent to send it
Mhm.
horizontally sideways. And so,
So then these space elevators, you get up there and then what, just sort of detach and float?
yeah, and so here's the cool thing. You would be floating there right next to the cable, but then you might think, well, then where did the energy come from? If you're technically in orbit at that point, where did the energy come from? If all you did was spend the energy to go up, you
Mhm.
didn't have to spend the energy to shoot yourself sideways like with a rocket. Where did the energy come from? Because you're obviously
Earth?
in orbit. And yes, that's right. You steal energy from the rotation of the Earth as you're
Huh.
climbing it. So you get sort of
Nice.
like a free boost. You get free energy from the actual rotation of the Earth. And if you
Nice.
and very technically speaking, the act of you going up this cable would slow down the Earth's rotation by a very minuscule, undetectable amount.
Like when you put your arms out when you're spinning around and you slow down.
Yeah. So the Earth is giving you a boost basically by being attached to it. It's
Nice.
pushing you forward, and then when you let
Uh-huh.
go, you're at that speed, and that's why you would want to send things up into geosynchronous orbit, because geosynchronous orbit is that point. It's about 35,000 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. That's the point above Earth that you can just go at orbital velocity. That if you're that high and you're going at orbital velocity, then you are going at a speed equal to the Earth's rotation. So you're stuck at you will be sitting over a synchronous point on the Earth. Like you'd be looking down, and you'll be looking down at the same spot the whole time you're up there, because you're
Like
you're
all
going
Google
at the
Earth
same
satellites.
speed. You're orbiting
Yeah.
at the same speed that the Earth is rotating.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
And then you could set it up so it could like move around if you needed to, right? I imagine like you could put little jets on it and make it change its orbit so it's not geosynchronous.
sure, yeah. Like whatever you put up there, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. You could put little jets on, and we do that with satellites and spacecraft all the time. They've got all sorts of systems on there to be able to nudge themselves around in space, and so that would be getting things up into geosynchronous orbit much more efficiently. A space elevator could do that, and you could also make space elevators on other. It doesn't have to just be on Earth. You can make space elevators on other planets, or even asteroids or moons,
Mm-hmm.
where the gravity is not as strong as on Earth. They might be easier to make there. In fact, some people propose, due to all the technical hurdles and challenges to making a space elevator, which again we're going to talk about in a minute, but some people propose that if we ever want to make a space elevator, maybe we should try building one on the moon first, because the types of materials that would be strong enough to make a space elevator on the moon already exist.
Right.
In the form that we need them. You could use Kevlar to make the cable, for example, to do a space elevator on the moon, and it would still be useful. We want to build moon bases, and we want to be able to park. We've talked about this before. The current plans for going back to the moon involve parking a space station out in orbit around the moon.
Yeah.
So why not build a space elevator from that station down to the surface of the moon, right?
Yeah.
And that could be not only really useful, but a proof of concept and a great learning opportunity for building these types of space elevators. Another interesting application of a space elevator I read about was it could be used to actually launch objects into space. So we were talking about taking things 35,000 kilometers up
Mm-hmm.
above the Earth into geosynchronous orbit. That's at that
Okay.
altitude again. Your orbital speed is equal to the rotation of the Earth.
Okay.
But remember your angular physics. You know your angular physics.
Yeah.
If you're on this cable, rotating at the same speed at any point on this cable, you will be rotating at the same angular speed as the Earth, right? You'll be rotating
yeah.
above the same point, but that means that your vertical or your horizontal velocity is higher the farther away from the Earth you are.
Right. So you could just get all the way up there and then just release and whip forward.
Yes, exactly. So if you go all the way to the end of this cable, like people are talking about how it might need to be 100,000 kilometers long, right? 3
Mhm.
times further out from geosynchronous orbit. If you go all the way out to there, you're still staying above the same point on Earth, but your horizontal velocity is very high.
Yeah.
And if you take something out that far and then release it, it would have enough velocity to get to the asteroid belt, is what I read.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like you'd be flinging stuff like whing, like whew, you're gone.
So we could send stuff to the moon real easy.
Yeah, real easy, or to Mars.
Yeah.
all sorts of places.
Cool.
So those are different applications. So okay, these are great reasons to use a space elevator, right? So how
Love it.
exactly would they work? I've already talked about basically how they're constructed, but let's talk about a couple of those components. The cable. Well, let's talk about the counterweight first. So the counterweight that would have to be at the end of this cable, first of all, would have to be a tremendous amount of weight
Okay.
in order to properly counterweight it. And when I say a tremendous amount of weight, what we're talking about is one of the proposed solutions for a counterweight is simply to capture an asteroid
Wow.
and attach it and attach it to the end of this cable. That's
Crazy.
that's the kind of weight we're talking about.
Okay. Okay.
So other people have proposed building a spaceport at the end of it to double as a spaceport and a counterweight.
Okay.
Some people say that's not a great idea. One of the reasons being that you don't want something up there that things are docking with, because it could move the counterweight around. Like if the energy from a spacecraft docking with the spaceport, the space station, could cause this thing to move around. Remember, it's attached to the Earth. It's a giant cable.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily want to do that. But other people have said, well, you could still maybe do what like large ships do, or like cruise ships. I just went on a cruise, right? A lot of times when we went into a port, we didn't dock right up next to the dock. We anchored out to sea a little bit, and we took little boats to the port, right? So they're saying, like, some people are saying, well, you could still build a spaceport, and just maybe instead of docking large ships, you have little spacecraft that can hold just a couple of people, that would take you out to larger spacecraft, right? Back and forth. Escape pods, but what would you call them?
Transport pods.
Transport pods, yeah. And then other people have said, or we could just build this thing, and then all the junk from the construction project we just bundle up together at the end. And a big pile of junk could be the counterweight. But either way, it has to be very, very heavy.
Garbage.
Yeah. It has to be very, very heavy. The cable itself, you might imagine, has to be very, very strong.
I cannot conceive of this cable.
Yeah.
Like just the amount of materials, let alone the design and the fail safes you'd have to put in, like,
holy cow.
Yeah. And then, like, what if like a plane flew into it, or another satellite smashed it? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people who criticize the idea of a space elevator, that's one of the big things that people bring up is failure like an accident, it would be a tremendously catastrophic accident.
It would be crazy.
So not just a catastrophic accident so on one end, so there's presumably going to be people working on this and around it and all this kind of stuff. Let's say something happened at the bottom at Earth and it detached at Earth. This whole cable and the counterweight would be launched into space. See you later. It'd be gone. Like anybody who happened to be on it, they're gone.
Done.
Yep.
Nothing we can do.
Yeah. Maybe they build some contingencies, escape pods. There's your escape pod idea. Maybe you have some sort of escape vehicles or something like that. Maybe, but there's no recovering this thing if it gets detached from the Earth. What potentially worse though is if the cable were to be severed at the counterweight end.
Yes.
Because that entire cable, which is potentially 100,000 kilometers long, would fall to Earth and wrap around the Earth. And
oh my God, it would wrap around the Earth.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So what is the circumference of the Earth, right?
40,000 kilometers. It would wrap around 2.5 times.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I didn't think about the wrapping part.
Yeah, because you kind of think like, oh, it would just like fall into a clump.
That's
bottom.
what I kind of thought.
No, the Earth doesn't stop rotating as it's falling.
Oh my God. I can't. Part of me wants to like see the simulation of that. I want to see the computer modeling of what that would look like because that would be insane. Oh my gosh.
So let's not think about that for a minute. Let's just say that somehow we could prevent that from happening.
Okay.
The cable itself would still have to be incredibly strong and lightweight. But there are materials that exist that could theoretically and potentially be made or used to make such a cable. And rather than talk about all the things that people have talked about over time, the leading candidate are carbon nanotubes.
Okay.
Carbon nanotubes for a long time have been, it's just chains of carbon molecules like that are made into tube-like structures that are very, very strong and flexible, which would be important for a cable like this. And so they can withstand massive amounts of tension. And so the main problem with that is that we haven't been able to so far. I think the record for a carbon nanotube length right now is like in the hundreds of meters.
Okay.
And we need tens of, potentially up to 100,000 kilometers. So we're not quite there yet. And so it would be really hard to make something like this, but that's the leading candidate for what could potentially the cable could be made out of. Some people also think diamond fibers. That's a thing that I guess can be made nowadays, which again, carbon is what we're talking about with diamonds.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, the cable, either way, the cable has to be able to withstand large amounts of different amounts of tension at various points along the cable. An interesting fact is the greatest tension point, the greatest force of tension is at geostationary orbit. You might think that it would be like at the Earth where the object, the counterweight is, because the counterweight plus the weight of the cable is being pulled outward, So you'd think maybe at the anchor point at Earth, that would be the highest tension, but it's not actually, because this is cool to think about the physics. We're not talking about a string spinning around our hands. We're talking about something much, much larger. So as you travel up this cable, the force of gravity gets less and less and less.
Right.
Whereas this apparent centripetal force gets more and more and more the further up you get. All right. So you get further and further away from the Earth, and these two forces are acting against each other. So imagine a car, a climber vehicle, is moving up this cable. As soon as it leaves the Earth, it's going to start feeling some of that centripetal force.
Right.
It might be really, really tiny and you don't even notice it, but it's also going to be feeling gravity. So the sum of those forces will determine whether or not you're feeling felt pulled down towards the Earth, or or you feel pulled away from the Earth, right? At
Right.
geostationary orbit is when
Oh.
the force of gravity is equal to the centripetal forces
Mhm.
that are being
Mhm.
built on there. So that's why the forces are the strongest there, is because they're maximal. Each one is the maximum amount that it will feel.
Mhm.
Basically, that the point of that cable is being pulled the most in both directions by both of those forces. And
Mhm.
so any cable that's made would have to, by a lot of the materials, basically it would have to be thickest at geostationary orbit, and then
Oh, wow.
it would taper off in both directions,
Huh.
because they also say that the cable would need to be designed so that the thickness of the cable would be such that there's a constant stress along all parts of the cable from
Mhm.
top to bottom. So that's why it would
Mhm.
need to be thicker right there at geostationary
I
orbit,
see. I see.
and slowly taper off towards the ends.
That's cool.
Carbon nanotubes also, one of the benefits of those is that the tension strength of the cable is such that the tapering is minimal. You would have to do the least amount of tapering
I see.
using a material like that, as opposed to something like, I don't know, steel or titanium or something like that, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that's the cable. It would have to be strong enough to withstand collision with space junk, also.
Yep.
And also it would have to be able to put up with wear and tear from the vehicle going up and down it,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Speaking of the vehicle, the way there's lots of proposed ways that the vehicle could work, but essentially it's not complicated. Essentially, it's got to be something that can somehow climb this rope up and down, whether it
Yeah.
be through friction or wheels or something like that going along
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
the cable. And they can be designed all sorts of ways. Some designs I've seen um, are designed to carry people on a 5-day journey up into geostationary orbit, and so some for like tourism type reasons have
Right.
been
Yeah.
designed where they would be a little more comfortable on that 5-day journey. Some of them are just like sending, workers up into, or astronauts up into space, so they're a little bit more utilitarian. And then there are some that are designed to carry cargo, which are just like basically like cargo containers attached to
Yeah.
a vehicle that goes up and down a cable, right? So,
Mhm. Mhm.
but yeah, it's pretty simple, the idea of the climbers, um, and but yeah, the speed of the climb. I was talking about that, how they average out around, assuming a 300 kilometer per hour
Mhm.
climb, but the speed of the climb would have to vary uh, depending on how high up it goes, because there's an interesting effect as the so it has to be controlled really, really carefully, and it can't go too fast. And the reason is
Mhm.
because as this climber moves up, it is every time it moves up to a new section of cable, it's actually moving slightly slower than the section of cable that it moves up to. Because remember, I said as you move further away from the Earth, it's going to be moving faster, right?
Oh,
So
that's right.
the cable itself, via the rotation of the Earth, is being
Mm.
pushed horizontally at any point. So
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
imagine that it's being pushed horizontally at a certain speed, and then it moves up a notch. That cable, the climber was moving at a certain speed, but the cable it just went up to is moving a little bit faster than that climber was moving. Now, eventually, the climber is going to be pulled along by the cable, and it'll eventually also be going that
Yeah.
speed. But
Yeah.
for a moment, the cable gets dragged backwards
Right.
by the car that just got up there. So
Uh-huh.
actually, the cable gets pulled back a little bit as it's going up, and that's actually equivalent to what we've talked about, the Coriolis force or the Coriolis effect. It's the same
Mhm.
idea.
Right.
The rotation, it pulls backwards a little bit, and so you have to control the speed of it. Can't go too fast, otherwise the cable gets yanked back too much. So you have
Got
to
it.
move it up slow enough to where the the cable itself can recover from the slow vehicle moving up, right?
Got to be gradual.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's got to be gradual enough. Um, interestingly, though, the opposite effect happens when it's coming down.
Oh yeah.
So it counteracts depending on the weight of the
Mhm.
payload. So
Yeah.
presumably you might be offloading a bunch of stuff, but you might also be putting on a bunch of trash and junk and stuff to take back down.
Mhm.
But depending on the weight of the payload on the way down, it would counteract that effect. And remember, I said that as it's going up, it steals rotational speed from the Earth.
Mhm.
That if you were to send the same weight down again, it would give that
Oh.
rotational speed back
Huh.
to the Earth.
That's
So
funny.
it is. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The other question is, how do you power this climber? You don't want to put batteries on it
No.
because batteries are very heavy.
Yes, they are.
But people have thought about how to wirelessly transfer energy from the ground.
Okay.
And through using very powerful lasers.
Oh.
That's the leading idea in terms of like how would we power this thing? Think of solar panels, but designed differently, designed to be. And when I say solar
to
panels,
receive lasers.
yeah, to receive lasers instead of energy from the sun.
Mm.
It's the same idea. You shoot a laser at this thing, and you have some device that converts that laser energy, that concentrated light energy, into energy that the climber would use to be able to go up the cable.
I thought it would be nuclear.
Well, that's another proposed solution, is that you could
Okay.
have some form of nuclear power that
Yeah. That seems like a
on the
more
climber.
logical option to me.
probably more like realistic now.
Right.
You know, like we have the technology to do something like that, right?
And ironically sort of feels safer. Like I feel like shooting lasers through
Because they would have to be
to
high-powered
space,
lasers.
they'd be very high power, and like what if they fail? Like you would need a failsafe. Like it would be really
Yeah, exactly. All right, so to end this all, we have to talk about finally how feasible is all of this. We've talked about a lot of problems along the way.
Yeah.
So you might imagine that the answer is that there's a lot of problems and it's not super feasible, right? Some people think it'll never happen. But other people are more optimistic, especially on places other than the Earth, like I mentioned, maybe on Mars or the Moon or an asteroid. Like if we started mining asteroids, it might be really an easy way to get stuff off of the asteroid up to some
Right.
mining ship that is flying around an asteroid, say.
Yeah.
But originally it was thought that that it was just more cost effective to build a space elevator. That was a lot of the inspiration for this, right? It costs a lot of money to shoot a rocket into space, right?
Sure does.
About 10 or 15 years ago, the cost to launch a rocket into space was between $20,000 and $30,000 per kilogram. That's $20,000 to $30,000 per kilogram. Yeah, very expensive. And analysis of modern space elevator designs estimate the cost to be around $1,000 per kilogram. Some estimates think they can get that as low as $200 per kilogram. So considerably cheaper, right?
Yeah.
However, today, modern day, it's getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to shoot rockets into space. So SpaceX, for example, is launching rockets at about $1,200 to $1,500 per kilogram. So a lot less expensive than it used to be. So, and that cost might go down even more. Now, cost isn't the only thing that we consider, of course. Like there's quite the carbon footprint to launching rockets into space also. So it's not. It'd be better for the environment to not have to burn all that fuel. But there's other difficulties. Not the least of which is making 100,000 kilometer long cable. We talked about that.
Yeah, that's hard to conceive of.
Very difficult. You have to have a very heavy counterweight. We talked about that. The challenge of building that cable is not just how long it has to be, but it has to be on a molecular level. It has to be like perfect. Because imperfections in the molecular structure would compound to create weaknesses in certain points, and you don't want that to happen. So And you could have redundancy. It wouldn't be a single carbon nanotube strand. Obviously it'd be a bundle, so maybe that wouldn't be too big of a deal, but still something that has to be thought about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So before we're done, I am going to say a little bit of a surprise to me while I was researching this is that apparently there is a company that is planning to build a space elevator,
Really?
beginning construction in 2025. That's next
What?
year.
That's next year.
Yeah. Now,
Where?
I don't know exactly. I mean, on the equator somewhere, right?
Right.
I don't remember exactly where they said, but it's a Japanese company, Obayashi Space Elevator or Obayashi Corporation. They're trying to build a space
Oh
elevator.
my gosh.
They claimed that they're going to start construction in 2025. They plan to be finished with construction in 2050, so it's going to take them a long time.
Hmm.
They plan to have climbers that are 100 tons, 96,000 kilometer long carbon nanotube cables,
Oh man.
400-meter diameter floating earth port, like where it's going to be anchored in the earth.
Okay.
And then the counterweight they're planning to use will be 12,500 tons. And I didn't read all the details of their plan, so I'm sure that they've outlined some proposed counterweights that they're going to use. But I did look at the basic like Gantt chart for the outline of their project.
Okay.
And the thing that's going to start in 2025 is the earth port. Other things like the carbon nanotube, the counterweight, the climber vehicle, all these other things that have to be done in they will not start. The earliest those are going to start is maybe 2030, 2035.
Right.
They are still in R&D, still in research and development. Like they're still coming up with the designs and how they're trying to advance the science to make this possible. But they know that this will take a long time to build, so they want to go ahead and start building the anchor on Earth and what that would require,
Wow.
They said that they on their project outline, they said just to build the cable will take them 20 years.
That is wild.
Like once they figured out how they're going to build it, once they start building it, that'll take 20 years.
So they think they're going to figure out how to do it in 5 years? They'll figure it out by 2030?
That's what they say.
Wow.
So
Holy moly.
We'll see. But that's space elevators. That's space elevators.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think it's a neat science fiction idea,
else.
and whether that'll happen or not, it would be really cool if they did figure out how to do it. But I don't know. I'm gonna
maybe by the time we retire, one will exist.
Maybe.
I'd go see that. Also, now I'm afraid of a giant cable wrapping around the Earth 2.5 times. Ugh.
Just don't hang out. Just don't go vacation on the equator.
Yeah, well, I feel like it would maybe be erratic enough that it could go anywhere.
Possibly.
Like mostly on the equator, but like who the heck knows?
But you're far enough north, I think that
I'd probably
you're
be
least
fine.
likely to be.
The tsunamis wouldn't hit me.
Right.
Okay, I really need to go to the bathroom, and then I'll be right back.
All right.
The chat had lots to say, so
yeah, I'm gonna start going through it. Play more video games, kids. Yeah, that's everything I know about orbital dynamics and rocket science. All comes from Kerbal Space Program, Logan. That is absolutely true. I did not say to quit school, Tweep. Come on. I weep for the generation that only knows factory safety from playing Satisfactory. I haven't played Satisfactory yet. Isn't that one that's one where you play in first person? Is that right, Logan? Cuz I feel like that's the one I've heard people playing in VR. Maybe it's absolutely the type of game that I think that I would enjoy, and I need to get it, but I need to find time to play it. World of Warcraft is taking all of my free time right now, which is becoming less and less with soccer season being around. Yeah. What is I've heard Foundation. What is Foundation about? I should look that up. Foundation television series. Let's read a description. An American science fiction television series created by David S. Goyer and Josh Friedman. I have Apple TV. It features an ensemble cast. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Can I get... I don't want to read the plot. Or maybe I do. In the far future, most of the known galaxy is despotically ruled by a revolving triumvirate of Emperor Cleon clones. I'm sold already. That sounds great. Foundation is a series of novels by Isaac Asimov. Oh, yeah, there's a show now. That's what I thought you were... I immediately thought... Well, yeah, Tweep was talking about the show because it said Watch Foundation. Make it
You
from
have watched
Spider-Man.
it?
No, I have not. I'm gonna put it on my list. I have a notes file of shows that I want to check out.
I don't have that one's on Apple TV, and I don't have Apple TV
I have it because
I have
Go ahead.
too many other things.
I have it through my cell phone plan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, now I want to watch it. It has a space elevator in it. That's cool. That is cool. I must confess I've tried to read Isaac Asimov, but never really was able to fully get into it. Some things are like, I don't know, the style of writing is just so different from what I'm used to
Yeah.
because of just the era that it's written in. And that's one of them.
What's a classic Isaac Asimov book?
I don't know. Let me see what was the one I tried to read. I cannot remember.
Bibliography.
Oh no. It wasn't Isaac Asimov. It was Hyperion. That's what I tried to read.
Oh. None of these. Oh, Popular Science. Okay. I need to see. Well, I mean, I know Isaac Asimov. Why do I know Isaac Asimov, but I don't know any of
iRobot.
these books? iRobot. Or I think the book, it was called Robot, but the movie was based on Isaac Asimov. You're right. Okay.
1950. Very interesting. He had some impressive, what do you call them? The long side of the beard, sideburns.
Yeah.
Impressive sideburns near the end of his life.
Wasn't he involved? When did he die? Wasn't he involved in the Voyager launch somehow?
1992 he died, so
yeah,
definitely could have been.
I think he was. I think he was like consulted or something.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Ready for our final?
Let's do it. All right, I have a mini listener question.
Oh, well, we like listener questions of any size.
Well, this particular one was not even really a question for the show, so I'm kind of just stealing it from Discord, in the science conversation channel. BioCow linked an article about astronomers observing very large plasma jets coming from supermassive black holes, and I was like, wait, is that my news item? But no. So in this article, what they have discovered are these very large plasma jets that are not 3,000 light years long. They are like 140 galaxies long.
Oh, so small.
So, just a little mini jet. So it's wild. It is wild. So what BioCow's question is if it's so big, why are we only finding it now? And he then points out, of course, Antarctica is big too, so takes a while to find that.
Yeah. That's true.
And the answer is that these giant jets, and they think that they've been around since the beginning of the universe.
Hmm.
These massive jets, we just didn't have the viewing capability.
Yeah.
And this happens over and over and over in astronomy. Like, we launched Hubble and we saw all this crazy stuff. We're like, oh, there's galaxies absolutely everywhere. We didn't
Yeah.
know that before. Radio telescopes eh, allowed us to discover what pulsars were
Hmm.
and understand what exactly was going on with those and other stars as well. And so it's a new type of technology that
Right.
allows them to be able to see. So
Right.
whenever you see um these kinds of discoveries, it's because of a new, usually new imaging technique, or they dug up some data that they were able to finally understand.
Yeah.
But this one, uh, in particular, it was using Europe's low frequency array radio telescope. So these are the
Yeah.
telescopes that like span massive amounts of space and don't really look like any telescope you can imagine because they're detecting radio waves.
Yeah.
Um, so the answer to that question, how could we not have seen it, is because it was never really like super obvious.
Yeah. But and
It was hidden in
also
the background.
yeah, and it's the two different types of advancement make it so that we can see these things that are very very big but we never could see before. And that one is resolution. Like
Hmm.
we have better resolution for our detectors. I say
Hmm.
detectors because they're not all like optical uh, telescopes, like you
Yeah,
said,
exactly. Yeah.
radio arrays. But also the other reason is because sometimes we get better, not just better resolution, but better resolution in certain frequencies of light or certain types of light.
Mm-hmm.
Like these jets that are shooting out of black holes are not in visible light.
No.
Not in they're in like X-rays or something, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Probably a whole range even.
yeah, exactly. So
Maybe something's visible.
we have to look first. We have to find the thing, then we have to look at it with the right type of telescope, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's a combination of of things. And then sometimes I think that haven't I heard, like I'll see a headline like that, like jets shooting out of whatever, and I'll be like, well,
Mm-hmm.
didn't
Mm-hmm.
we already see this? And I realize, no, we never saw it before. A lot of these things have been theorized for a long,
Yeah.
long
Yeah.
time. The math has
Mm-hmm.
already been figured out, and astronomers pretty much knew that this probably existed. It's just this is the first time we actually have the instrumentation to finally be able to see
Yeah.
that it actually exists. We've been observed it finally. Yeah.
The other thing about this particular discovery was that they kind of did find it by accident. Like they were looking through the data of this telescope and they're like, oh, well, what's this? And then they started really investigating and looking for them.
Yeah.
So we did like it is big and there's actually a lot of them too. It's not just like one. Um, and when we found it, we started to really dig in and found lots more. So yeah, it's about that instrumentation, I think,
Yeah.
almost all of the time. Sometimes reinterpreting data and that kind of stuff, but
And getting
most of the
lucky, like
time
you said.
new stuff. Yeah, exactly.
When it's a jet, sometimes it needs to be pointed at us to see it.
That's true. Yeah, that was the case with pulsars too, or is the
Yeah.
case with pulsars. We didn't
Yeah.
understand them so well because we were only looking at the ones that were flashing their pulses towards us.
Yep.
Anyway, thanks for the question, BioCow, the inadvertent question.
Yeah.
And to everybody who's like, "Hey, I had a question and you've never answered it," and BioCow just like randomly wrote that. It's just because it connected to what I was saying
Yeah.
today. I was like, "Oh, another jet from another thing. Cool.
We try to go through our questions. Some of you guys have such good questions that it takes us a while to answer them as well. So,
Yes, yeah. Sometimes we need to think it through. So
well, that's going to be it for this episode of All Around Science. Now, those listening live, you guys know we're going to hang out for a little bit afterwards, which is a great reason for if you didn't make it to this live episode to try to come to the next one, because we hang out for longer after we get done recording, and we just hang out,
true.
chat for a little bit before we go. But for the proper podcast portion of the show, that's going to be it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you've got questions or feedback, you can email us at contact@allaroundscience.com.
We're on socials at All Around Sci or All Around Science.
My name's Bobby,
I'm Maura.
and we'll see you next week for some more science stuff.
Black hole jets poppin' novas.
Whoa.
I don't know. Does that work? I feel like that works.
Sure.
Haven't we explored more of space than we have our own oceans? I don't know. Space is so enormous. Depends what you mean by explore. But we still are making lots of discoveries about the ocean. Poppin' novas at the club. Oh boy.
All right.
All right.
On today's episode,
Black hole jets poppin' novas.
All right, I didn't even get started. All right. And is it possible to build an elevator to space?
All that and more today on All Around Science.
Great.
We did it. We did it. Ooh, I just got hungry again. Thank you, everyone, for sticking around for this rockin' ride of a podcast recording. We went off topic a lot.
We sure did. Sorry, I got distracted for a second.
Yes, you did. I was just talking to myself there for a minute.
We got off topic, but that's the fun part of doing a live show.
Yeah. It's all good. Is it sweaty over there? Oh, hey, how are the hurricanes in your neck of the woods?
You know what's funny is nothing happened to us. We didn't lose power here. None of the trees in our yard or around us like came down on top of anything. Nothing really even came down. So everything was fine. And so I started getting messages from people and text messages and stuff. Everybody asking, "Hey, is everything okay? Are you guys fine? Just checking in," which I really appreciated. I thought it was amazing, and it was really nice to get people hearing about all the Hurricane Helene that came through and did a ton of damage in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Tennessee, and over here. But they kept a bunch of people asked and how we were doing, and I was like, "Oh yeah, we're fine." But I was in my head, I was like, "What are you talking about? We're fine." Like, I'm looking around the neighborhood, and I'm like, what do you? But then I get onto like social media and seeing all the things that are going on, and we got really lucky. Even people, Kaylee's my younger daughter, her teacher is still without power.
Wow.
And it's been 5 days. My I had a flying lesson scheduled for tomorrow, and my flight instructor had to cancel my flying lesson for tomorrow, saying that he still doesn't have power.
Oh my gosh.
And then that's just the power. That's not to mention damage from trees going down. The guy that we pay to cut our lawn, the landscaping guy, I was texting with him, and he said that like they had two cars, like a tree came down on both of their cars.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
and like and then again, that's not even the worst of it. Like there's so much flooding everywhere. Up in the western part of our state and up in western North Carolina, got hit really bad. I'm part
Mm.
of a bunch of aviation Facebook groups, right? And there's people on
Mhm.
there
Mhm.
all over the place saying, trying to organize, like volunteering their people organizing volunteers who own planes and who own helicopters to fly supplies and people, um, out supplies into those areas and people out of those areas and stuff like that. It's it's really bad, and we just got lucky.
Oh.
They're saying that this might not mean anything to you, but if anybody's listening who knows the history of hurricanes in the southeast, they're saying that our power company, sent us an email basically saying, look, I know people are still out without power, but we're working as hard as we can. Um,
Mm.
and they said that the damage that they've seen, to their to the area is the worst they've seen since Hurricane Hugo, and that was a really bad one that people still talk
Mm.
about from back in the I think back in the 80s,
Oh
late
wow.
80s. So, um, and that it was bad enough that people still talk about it like
Wow.
to this day. So this is a really bad one, and
Oh
it's
my
bizarre to
gosh.
me
I'm
that
looking
like
at some pictures.
yeah.
Holy moly.
There's flooding even in our city. It just wasn't where we are.
Wow.
We just got really lucky, and
Oh wow. Okay, there's a picture of a woman standing in a field of debris. Like
yeah,
it looks like somebody just put a building through a paper shredder
yeah.
and scattered it around her, and it says it's where a radio station was.
There's probably a tornado that went through there that from all the storms, because there were a
But you
bunch
can
of
get
tornado.
tornadoes and hurricanes at the
The
same time.
storms that result from a hurricane, afterwards, there were some tornadoes.
Oh.
Um,
Oh.
or on the
I
outskirts
didn't
of
know
a
that.
hurricane, I think sometimes there are bad thunderstorms that are like adjacent to the hurricane or something
Hmm.
that can spin
Hmm.
off some tornadoes.
Looks like there's been a death toll of more than 150 too.
Oh, last I'd heard it was in the 80s or 90s, so I guess
Ugh,
it's going to
that was
keep
rough.
going up as they find out
Right,
more.
because they find people and stuff. That
Yeah.
is so awful.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're okay, but that sounds really even if, it's just like a couple of crushed cars is better than some of the things that could happen, but still, that's still awful.
Yeah. Let me see. I don't can a hurricane cause tornadoes? I might just be conflating. Yeah, hurricanes and tropical storms can produce tornadoes. I wasn't wrong about that.
Hmm,
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, we get. I wasn't sure if I was conflating things because we get both hurricanes and tornadoes in our around here. So, not as many tornadoes as probably Logan gets. Does Missouri get a lot of tornadoes? I feel like it's in that part of the country that gets a lot of tornadoes. Um, but I think that's
Oh my God.
a North
This is
American thing,
wild.
right? Tornadoes. You don't really get a lot of tornadoes in other places.
I don't actually know. I
Let's
think
see.
North America gets the worst.
What countries have tornadoes? All of them is what it'll say. The United States has the most tornadoes of any country, averaging around 1,200 per year.
The deadliest tornado in world history was in the Dalapur Saturia tornado in Bangladesh
Wow.
on April 26th, 1989. It killed 1,300 people. Oh my God. But that's not the
Oklahoma. Did I say
worst.
you lived in Missouri? Or do you? Anyway, I'm. It's late at night, so it's not. My brain's not working properly.
Oh,
Um,
good.
but yeah, it was rough. in a lot of places, but we were fortunate not to. I mean, it was just a lot of rain and wind where we are, and not even we've even seen more than we got. So
Well, I'm glad you're safe and all is well, and it is beginning to die down. Yeah, like it's
I mean
wrapping
the
up.
hurricane, the storm's gone.
Yeah. Okay.
But flooding can last for a while.
Yeah.
And then the damage, of course, takes a long time to recover from.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the worst part. All right. Well, on that happy note, I'm gonna go eat some dinner.
Get some Go get some good Canadian gummy bears. That's what you need to do. All right. Thank you, everybody, and we'll catch you next time. Bye
Good
bye.
night.